Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine Avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya te namah Sruti smriti purananam alayam karunalayam Namami bhagavad pada shankaram loka shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krudau Vande Bhagavando Punah Punah. We are beginning this new adhikaranam. It is called Antaradhikaranam. Before we enter this particular new adhikaranam, I think it's the seventh adhikaranam, just wanted to explain a few things in a way of the connection between the previous adhikaranam and the present one. It is called Sangati. So, there are 5 elements which constitute Panchangam Adhikaranam. That is Vishaya, Samsaya, Purvapaksha, Siddhanta, and very important Sangati is a connection. So, Sangati is a connection. Connection could be the connection between the preceding Adhikaranam and the present Adhikaranam. Also, connection in terms of illustrations, that is examples, incident, some kind of connecting link, that is called Sangati. So normally when we take up this subject, we often, in the traditional schools, we talk about the Sangati. So what was the previous Adhikaranam, Anandamaya Adhikaranam, where we established, or the Bhashyakara established, that Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, all these 5 koshas are all vikaras of Ananda. So, you have to remember there were many multi-layered dialectical streams in the previous Bhashya. The earlier Purvapakshin tried to establish that all the 5 are vikaras. Then the Siddhantin, in responding to the previous Purvapakshi, the previous Purvapakshin tried to establish that Anandamaya implies Jiva, or maybe even Pradhana, which is Achetana. And the Siddhantin, that is the previous Siddhantin, the first Siddhantin, it is called Ekadesi Matam, Bodhayana, Vrittikara, technique called Vrittikara. There are different views with regard to who this Vrittikara was. Either Bodhayana, who is the author of Kritakoti, which is supposed to be the basis of Ramanujacharya's Bhashya, a copy of which he got from Kashmir. This is one story, this is one traditional belief. So Vrittikara tried to change the interpretation of Maya Pratyaya from Vikarartha to Prachuryartha and tried to establish that this Anandamaya itself is the last, because after that there is nothing more is mentioned. So that is Brahman. And in response to that, Bhashyakara Shankaracharya established that the absolute principle is Brahman or Atma, which is not Anandamaya, and that Atma, the Brahman, is the Adhishthanam Asraya of Anandamaya. So the conclusion was Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha, that is the Upasamhara Vakya. The concluding linga, Shadvidha linga, Talpirya linga, Upakrama, Upasamkhara, Abhyasa, Apurvada Phalam, Arthavadu Upatija, Lingam Talpirya Nirnaya. Upakrama is Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma, Upasamkhara is Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha. In both Upakrama and Upasamkhara, the beginning and the conclusion, we have this Brahma Padam. So, Brahman is the actual implication, that is the absolute reality, that is the Pradishtha or ashraya or adhishtanam of even Anandamaya. That is the conclusion. Now in the present Adhikaranam, it is called Antaradhikaranam. There is something similar to that. This kind of relation or connection with regard to illustration. We call it Drishtanta Sankati. Because in the previous section, Bhashyakara established Brahman as the Adhishtanam, the absolute principle of everything. In the present illustration also, there is something similar to that. But the only difference is, in the Antaradhikaranam, Parameshwara or Ishvara is established as a Upasya. That is central theme of Antaradhikaranam. So, according to some schools, it is Drishtanta Sankati, Antaradhikaranam, and according to some other schools, it is incidental connection. It's called Prasanga Sankati. Connection between sutra, section or chapter. It is called Sankati. So there are different views. Normally when we try to explain an Adhikaranam, this Sankati is very important. For example, in this context, Sankati is the Drishtanta Sankati, that is relation with regard to illustration. Vishaya is Ataya Eshundraditye Hiranmaya Purusho Drishyate. This is the Chandogya Vakyam. And this is the Adhikarana Vakyam actually here. It is going to be discussed. This is the Vakya. Ataya Eshundraditye Hiranmaya Purushaha Drishyate. In the sixth section, Khanda of the first chapter. Remember, that is the first chapter, sixth Khanda. In the first chapter, the text begins with Udgitobhasana, Samobhasana. And then in between, this also comes, this golden person, Hiranmaya Purushaha, who is Hiranyasmasruhu, Hiranyakeshaha. Has got a long hair, long beard, golden hair. And then it is golden right up to the nail that we are going to discuss today in the text and Bhashya. It is saying, who is that Hiranmaya Purushaha? Whether it is Samsari Jiva, who has done a lot of karma, Karmadisevashad, it's called, means lot of sat karmas, and may have done a lot of yajnas and yagas, and then reach a higher world after death. A yogi who possesses all the yoga, anima, garima, laghima, mahima, and so ishitum, bashitum, all these vibhudis, or it is Parameshwara. That discussion is the subject. So that is the Vishaya. Adayeshwandraditye Hiranmaya Purusho Drishyate. This is the Vishaya, that topic for discussion. The Samshaya is whether it is an Upasya Devadatma or an exalted Jiva, a yogi. Yogi also becomes almost like an Upasya Devada, or it is Parameshwara. This is the Samshaya. Purvakshin says it is not Parameshwara, it is Devada Visheshaka, is Devada. Purvakshin. Siddhantin says no, that Hiranmaya Purusha is Parameshwara, Paramatma. Not Brahman, but Parameshwara, Upasya Parameshwara. This is Siddhanta. So this is the background of this Antaradhikaranam. It's a very slightly different. All these should be kept in mind. The difference is this. In Antaradhikaranam, Ubhadisa Vivakshita. That means The focus is on Upadhi. That means the ultimate principle to be established, Vishaya, in this Adhikaranam is an Upasya Parameshwara. In this Adhikaranam, it is not Jnaya, it is Upasya. But in the previous section, Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha, the Brahman is Jnaya and not Upasya. In the previous section, in the Anandamayadhikaranam, Panchakoshas are only Upadhis, only Upayas, towards which take us eventually beyond all Upadhis, beyond all these, towards Nirubadhikam Brahma. That is the purpose, Vishaya of the previous Adhikaranam. Panchakoshas are only Upayas. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. These are all Vikaras according to Siddhanta Paksha. Because Ubhadis are not Vivakshita. Rather, what is Vivakshita? Jnayam Vastu. That Brahman is Vivakshita. That is Nirvishesham Brahma. That is Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha. So, sometimes you have to look at the Tikakaras, sometimes, Govindananda, or sometimes, Bhamadi, sometimes in the Bhamadi Prasthana, that is Amarananda Saraswati in the Kalpaduru, that is Bhamadi Kalpaduru. Kalpaduru says, Nirvishesham Param Brahma Sakshat Kartum Anishwaraha Ye Mandaste Anugambhyande Savishesha Nirupanaihi. So Nirvishesham Param Brahma, this is with regard to the Nirvishesham Brahma is actually the subject of discussion in Anandamaya Adhikaranam. But there are people who cannot understand it. Because Brahman is Jnayam. Ishvara is Upasya. If you are not able to understand the meaning of Mahavakya, or if you have not fully established yourself in sadhana chadushta sampatti, then after listening to Mahavakya, because you are not able to fully understand, Shvetaketu was not able to understand till the last Upadesha, to the end of the 16th section of the 6th chapter of Chandogya. Ye mandaha te anugambhyande savishesha nirupanaihi. So those who are not competent to immediately grasp the meaning of Sravana, for them eventually they have to grow and evolve and progress. And then when they reach that stage, what happens? They will understand. Till then, they have to slowly evolve. And they need a upasya vastu, not jnaya vastu. Jnaya vastu is okay only for the most advanced. For those who are mandas, mandas here means those who are less evolved. They need some Parameshwara, Upasya. So according to Andaradhigaranam, Ubadhis are Vivakshita. The Hiranyas Masru, Hiranyakesha, Hiranmaya Purusha, all these are mentioned here. Bhashyam established, this indicates a Parameshwara who is an Upasya. So the focus is not Jnayam, but the focus is Upasya. That is an important point to keep in mind. Okay, now we will come to the next subject. A few more details about this Antaradhikaranam. So there is the structure of the Bhashya. Bhashya is not too long, but it is technically very, very, very important, slightly difficult. So if you find any difficulty, don't find fault with Shankaracharya. You find fault with your own fate. So people who don't have the brains or the spiritual culture, the refinement, they may find fault, I don't understand this. The only way out is you should grow, and if you are studying a textbook prescribed for the postgraduate class, And if you are only in the kindergarten, maybe you're unwilling to go to the kindergarten and learn the alphabet first. And you are asked to read a textbook meant for the post-graduation. Oh, it doesn't make sense to me, so I'm going to write a new theory. The problem is your own head and your own fate. So that's why that is true. Even for us, even Swetaketu had problems. So what about our modern people? No problem. So the structure of the dialogue, the dialectic. So Shankaracharya's, how he progresses in his dialectical evolution. So remember, first of all, Vishaya, which is the text under discussion, Eswandiraditya, Hridmaya Purusha, etc. We'll discuss elaborately with the text and Bhashya. Samshaya, we already know whether it is a samsari jiva or devatatma. Or jiva, not an ordinary jiva. Karma dishya, karma dishya. I mean, you have done a lot of such karmas, yajnas, yagas. And then you may have gone through, this Dakshinayana Marga, because you had a lot of such karmas, naturally you reach a higher level. And then you have a lot of powers. Anima, Leghima, Garima, Mahima, you are an exalted yogi, you find, for example, the Trilinga Swami was supposed to have lived for 300 years. So a yogi. But he is not Parameshwara. Because yogi's body also is subject to prarabdha karmas. Parameshwara is not bound by prarabdha karmas. He is beyond both punya and also papa. Yogi has an abundance of punya, but little bit of papa also. So, who is this exalted Purusha, this Hiranmaya Purusha? Whether Hiranmaya Purusha is a Devadatma, or it is an exalted yogi, or he is Parameshwara himself. That is the Samshaya. Purvapaksha is, he is a Devadatma. He is not Parameshwara. Siddhanta is, he is Parameshwara. So this is subject. So what is the description of this person in the Vishaya? Hiranyasmasru, Hiranyakesha. Then Pundarika, his eyes are like lotus. So we will find that important section dealing with that section which actually creates controversies between Visitadvaitis and Advaitis, which Ramanuja found difficult to digest, that you find. So that is these are the features, a kind of what you may call it, a kind of anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphism means imposing human aspects on Godhead. Anthropomorphic means. So description is anthropomorphic. And again, the argument is this. First, is a presiding deity or Jiva or Ishvara. The Siddhanta I mentioned is Parameshwara. So the Purvapakshins say it is not Parameshwara because inside Aditya, Akshini, two words are used. In the Nyayamala, you find people described earlier. There is a well-known text is there which you have to read, which will describe. So one is the kind of localization. That Hiranyaya Purusha is explained, described to be seated inside Aditya and Akshini at the Adidevata level, at the transcendental macro level, transcendental level, universal level. That Purusha is stated to be seated Aditya inside the sun. At the micro individual level, Akshini inside the eye. And of course, beard, hair, eyes, golden body, everything is mentioned. So that's one thing. So there is Rupa and also there is Adhara. That Bharati Tirtha Swamiji, Shingeri Swamiji, who wrote Nyaya, Vaiyashika Nyaya Mala, will describe, will understand. That is, Purvapakshi's argument is, there is a reference to Adhara, Maryada and Rupa. Adhara means a place where the Hiranmaya Purusha is seated. Is seated in the Aditya or in the I. At the universal level, in the Aditya, at the individual level, at I. So, that is one. Then Rupa, he has a beard, Hiranyasmasru, Hiranyakesha, and so on. And also there is a limit to his power called Maryada. I mean, the text talks about rulership over certain regions, not Parameshwara. Parameshwara has rulership over the entire universe. It is Sarveshwara. But this particular Devata Vishesha has only limited rulership. So Maryada. So Maryada, Rupa and Adhara. These are supposed to be the limiting factors of this Purusha. And for that reason, Purvapakshi says, it is not Parameshwara, it is only a Devata Vishesha. That's the idea behind. So what is a Siddhanta? Remember, this is a Siddhanta Sutra. So, Bhashyakara elaborately introduces and describes this Antaha Tadharmopadeshat as Siddhanta Sutra. Anta means inside, Aditya Rakshini. Inside the sun at the transcendental universal level, inside the I at the individual level. So, again, the Shruti is giving the lingas indications of different aspects of Parameshwara. The Dharmopadeshat, what are dharmas are mentioned here? Universality, and then Sarvatmatvam, and then Apagata that is, that person, that is Aditya Purusha, is called Ut. When we study the textbook, we'll understand it's called Ut. Ut means he has gone beyond, he has risen beyond all evil. Apagata Papmatvam. And then Sarvatmatvam. The text also tells you he is Rig, he is Saman, he is Uktam, he is Yaju, he is Brahman. And then it says the Rig, Saman are his joints, with the joints of one in the sun being the joints of the other. So Shankaracharya says the Sarvatmatvam, Apagata Papmatvam. All these are indications, lingas of Parameshwara and not of Devata Visheshaka. And then Vishya Vishayatvam. Upanishad will tell you that those who sing Veena, they are actually singing about him, and from him they obtain wealth, from they obtain everything. He has got lordship over upper and lower worlds. What does it mean? This Sarvatmatvam, this transcendental power cannot be conceived of in the context of a Devata Vishesha, in the context of a yogi, in the context of an exalted samsari jiva, because a yogi also is bound by prarabdha karma. Yogi becomes a yogi because he has a huge stock of punya, but also he will have a little bit of papa. But the Parameshwara, he transcends not only papa, he is not only apagata papa. Here, when you describe, this is a very important point from Advaitic perspective. So when you describe Ishvara or Parameshwara as apagata Padma, in the sense that he has gone beyond all sins, beyond all papas, it also means he has gone beyond all punyas also. Because he has exalted himself, he had gone beyond both. That is possible only for Parameshwara and not for a yogi. Yogi will have a lot of punyas, but also he'll have a little bit of papa, the limitation. That's why he is coming back. Prarabdha is still there for a yogi. Even if a person, a divine person, an exalted yogi also will be bound by prarabdha karma. In that sense, it is not a yogi, but it is Parameshwara who has gone beyond both papa and also punya. Now we will discuss Vaiyasika Nyayamala of Bharati Tirtha. This is very important from a philosophical perspective. Hiranmayo Devadatma Kimva Aso Parameshwara Maryada Adhar Ruboktehi Devadatma Eva Na Ishwaraha. So, Hiranmaya Purusha, that is visible in Aditya. He is a divinely exalted person. According to Purvabhakshin, so Samshaya comes here, whether he is Parameshwara, Supreme Lord, or he is an exalted person, a yogi. So the Purvabhakshin will tell you, Maryada Adhara Ruboktehi Devadatma Evana Ishwaraha. There is the mention of Maryada, Adhara, that means limit, support, and also a person who has a place to sit. So he is Adhara. Maryada means limit to his powers. Rupa means he has got a definite form. So when you read this or listen to this, you should always keep in mind that Upanishad mantra, which will describe after this, so that should be kept in mind. So better I would take that mantra, otherwise you may not understand. So that is Chandogya. You can take the text here. So the text begins, Athaya Eshondaraditye Hiranmaya Purusho Drishyadi Hiranyasmasruhu Hiranyakesha Aprakhanat Sarva Eva Suvarnaka. This is the. So the context is this. The first chapter, it begins with Samopasana, called Udgithovasana. So you can see that in the mantra, those who have got the text, Udgidhasya upasanantaram viditsyate. That mentioned here. Actually, the whole chapter begins with that. So if you took at the beginning of Chandogya Upanishad, it's better to take a look at it to understand the background of what we are describing, because some of you may not be familiar with the text, so that's very important. Om iti edadaksharam iti, etc. It is mentioned here. And then the text discusses Atha idanim sarva phala sampatyartham udgitasya upasanantaram viditsyate. So that is how it begins. That it would be Udgithovasana or Samopasana. It's part of Samaveda. According to Siddhanta, to keep in mind, it is Paramatma Paratvam. According to Purvabhaksha, it is Devadatma Paratvam. Chandogya Upanishad, Prathamadhyaya, Uvasana related Vakyam. That is the context here. So already mentioned here. Adaya Eshondaraditye Hiranmaya Purusho Drishyade Hiranyasmasruhu Hiranyakesha Aprakhanat Sarva Eva Suvarnaka. In this, at the transcendental level, in Aditya, in sun, you can see this golden person who is golden hair, golden beard, and golden form. Aprakhanat, right up to the nail, Eva Suvarnaka. This is the text. And then, this is very important to remember, Tasyedha kapyasam pundarigam eva akshini tasya udiditi. Namasa esha sarvebhya papmabhya udita udetiha sarvais parvebhya papmabhyo ya evam veda. So this is the well-known verse which is actually the bone of contention, which actually historically is supposed to have made Ramanujacharya very unhappy, because I will find the technical details of this interpretation. Tasyedha kapyasam pundirigam eva akshini tasya ut iti nama. Ut iti nama. Ut means something that is exalted, gone beyond, transcendental. Esha sarvebhya papmabhya uditaha, going beyond all this. Udedikhavai sarvebhya papmabhyo evam veda. This is the point here. So, his two eyes, that is kapyasam. So, remember, Atma is not karta and bhokta. Atma is nitya mukta. All these ideas are mentioned here. So, here please look at the text. Please remember. Tasya evam sarvataka suvarna varnasya api akshnor vishesha katham tasyeda kapekhe markadasya asa kapyasa aser upadeshanarthasya karane ngensi. So now remember, here kapyasam. Kapyasam actually means buttocks. So kapyasam is the adjective or visheshana of not the Lord's eyes, but it is a visheshana. Comparison is to Pundariga, that is the red, brightly red lotus. So kapyasam, according to Shankaracharya, it is the buttocks of a monkey. The place where monkey sits, that place becomes red. But one should not misunderstand that Shankaracharya is comparing kapyasam, as he understands it, with the Lord's eye. He is comparing it with the red lotus. So Shankaracharya compared the kapyasam to lotus. The lotus is compared to the eyes of the Lord. So remember that. Because kapyasam has got a definite meaning in Sanskrit language. That is the Aser upaveshanarthasya, Aseke upaveshanarthasya karanenyanj. Kavi prushtanta andayena upavishati. So, kavi prushtantaka yena upavishati. Kapyasa iva pundarigam atyanta tejassi evam devasya akshini. So, the redness of the buttocks of the monkey is not compared to the redness of the Lord's eyes. It is compared to the redness of the red lotus. So what is the point of comparison? The brilliant red color of the lotus and the brilliant red color of the monkey's buttocks. So that's important. So it is called upamita upamanam. So you have to remember that. Atyanta tejasvi evam devasya akshini upamita upamanatvad is a factual, na hinopama. It will become hinopama if the comparison was between kapyasam and the Lord's eyes. The comparison is between kapyasam, that is Markadasya asaka kapyasaka. Asike upeshanarthasya karani. So that is compared to the red brilliant lotus. And that brilliant lotus is compared to the Lord's eyes. Otherwise, there will be hinopama. Suppose somebody compare you to something that you don't like or you extremely dislike to your disadvantage, then you may call it hinopama. You're comparing yourself to something that's so lower, so absolutely unthinkable. You consider an insult. You may go to the court also. So that sort of comparison may be called hinopama. The Bhashyakara makes it very, very clear. Upamita umanatvad. What is upamita? Upamita means something that is already compared. An object which is already compared. That is compared again to what? Something else. It is not direct comparison. So it is called upamita upamanam. So no hinopama. When you compare directly, it becomes hinopama. And suppose somebody compares you to a strong tree, to a big tree, you may not like it. But that tree may be compared to something else. So something which is already compared, something already likened, an object which is already likened to something, compared to something, that is again compared to something else. So it is indirect. So it is not hinopama. You know why this is very important? Because this has created a lot of controversy, and it is said historically that Ramanujacharya got offended by listening to. But he was a great devotee, so naturally you may have your own upasa Ishtadevada, and you may suddenly get excited. It's very natural, actually nothing wrong in it. So this is a very, very important point, remember. This is historically very important. So Kapyasa is compared to lotus, red lotus. So Ramanujacharya, of course, gives a different meaning to this. Ramanujacharya says, Kapyasam here means sun, brilliant sun, that is something that absorbs water. Who absorbs water? The sunlight, the brilliant, red colored, brilliant sun that absorbs water. So that can be one way of interpreting the same sentence. Nothing wrong in it. So Ramanuja says, come is water, and sun absorbs water from an ocean, from a river. So that opens the lotus. That sunlight opens lotus flowers. So Kapyasam is Vishesha here. That is Tamare. That's so one. Idi Kapi, Surya, that is lotus. That is Ramanuja's interpretation. Technically very important, but to clear the doubt. So remember, Shankaracharya, very, very specifically he mentions, don't get offended. He says, that's why he says, Upamita upamanatvat nahinopama. Upamita upamanatvat. You're comparing something to something else, and that is compared to something else. It is indirect, it is not direct. This is technically very, very important to understand. Okay, that's all. It will be worthwhile to discuss how Ramanuja happened to study Shankaracharya's Bhashya of Chandogya Upanishad. His teacher's name was Yadava Prakasha. And Yadava Prakasha was following Adi Shankara's tradition and explained the expression Kapyasam Pundarigam as meaning the Lord's eyes were like the lotuses whose color resembled the hind parts of the monkey. That's all. Though this was intended only as a grammatical and symbolic interpretation, Ramanuja somehow felt offended and he felt it was an irreverent expression. And then he thought that maybe the Bhashya was comparing the Lord's eyes to a lowly animal. But actually, that's the opposite of the reality. So what was Ramanuja's objection? Ramanuja interpreted this Kapyasam as Ka, water, P, to drink. So Pibadi, Pibaditi, somebody who drinks or absorbs water. So Kapi here means the sun, the one, the brilliant sun that drinks or absorbs water through evaporation. So, Kapyasam Pundarigam, according to Ramanuja, means a lotus blossomed by the sun. The phrase thus describes the Lord's eyes as a beautiful, like sun-blossomed lotuses, preserving the divine splendor. So, the point is, Ramanuja thought Kapyasam was a Visheshan of Pundarigam. So, Kapyasam means lotus. And what is opened? Who opens the lotuses? Surya. So, lotus is opened by the Surya. So, Kapyasam means Pundarigam or red lotus. This is how he interpreted this particular expression, Kapyasam. Means Kapyasam resembling the lotus blossom by the sun. Kapi here means Surya. So, this is the background. Now, we have to turn to Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya makes it very, very clear that this is Upamida Upamanam, that is indirect. Upamida Upamanatvad. Something which is already compared is again being compared to something else. So there is no scope for any kind of acquisition of Hinopama. Because Advaita interpretation of Shankaracharya is not intended as anything disrespectful. Comparison of God's eyes with the unpleasant parts of the monkey. I mean, the purpose of the commentary is primarily philological, grammatical and etymological. So in Sanskrit exegesis, commentators often derive meaning from roots, from dhatu and compound formations, without regard to whether the imagery sounds aesthetically pleasing or otherwise. So the comparison is only the comparison of colors. So perhaps we can assume that Yadav Prakasha failed to explain to Ramanuja that the interpretation was not intended as an insult. So there is no Hinopama involved here. Bhashyakara himself makes it very clear in his own Bhashya. And Advaita treats descriptions as secondary because the realization of the Supreme Brahman is much more important. So, and Bhashyakara, Shankaracharya's concern was linguistic precision rather than aesthetic devotion. So this is a very, very important point that not frequently understood. Shankaracharya gives a grammatical and descriptive interpretation and not necessarily an aesthetic interpretation that may be much more pleasing to a devotee like Ramanuja. So he was only interpreting this expression according to the principles of accepted grammatical and lexical conventions. So there is no disrespect intended here. Therefore, the charge of Hinopama doesn't apply here. And again we have to remember in classical poetics, Hinopama occurs when an inferior object itself is used in a way that lowers the dignity of the principal subject. Shankara's explanation does not praise the monkey or suggest that the Lord's eyes resemble an animal in any form of nature. The comparison, you have to remember, is confined to color alone. And the comparison is Upamita Upamanam, it is indirect. Again, Bhashyakara Shankaracharya was under the obligation, according to his status as a Bhashyakara, to interpret and comment Vedic mantras according to accepted grammatical and lexical principles and not aesthetic principles. As a commentator, as a Bhashyakara, he sought to determine the meaning of the word as transmitted in the Vedic text. That was the primary. It is Srutehe. So, Sruti Pramana is supreme for Shankaracharya. So, whether the interpretation may be more aesthetically pleasing to a devotee or not is a separate question. And that is not a matter of discussion from the Bhashyakara's point of view. So we have to also remember that Shankaracharya is the author of some of the most beautiful, most charming poetic classics in Sanskrit language. He has written stotras on Shiva, Vishnu, Devi, Kumara, Subramanya, and he's the great Sharmata Sthapaga, and he was the one who expounded this Panchadevata Puja. So now we will come to the text again. So Hiranmayo Devadatma Kim Va Aso Parameshwaraha Maryada Athara Rupokteke Devadatma Evana Ishwaraha. And then Sarvatmyat Sarvadurida Rahityacha Ishwaro Mataha Maryadyadya Upastyartham Ishepi Sihu Upadhikaha. So it is the soul, it is the Atma of all beings, Sarvatmyat. It is the soul of all beings, and it again, Sarva Durida Rahityat. It is free from all sins. And you have to remember, through Balakshana, the Parameshwara is not free from only sins, Papa, but is also free from Punya. So, Papa Punya Rahityat, that should be understood. Because the moment you say he is free from all Papas, then he will be free, he will be full of Punyas. And Punya also is an obstacle for Parameshwara. The Parameshwara is not even bound by Punya. He is the source of all Punyas, but that itself is not necessarily an adjective of Parameshwara, according to Advaita, of course. Not. So this Hiranmaya Purusha is supposed to be the Lord, the very Lord, Parameshwara. And what about this Maryada, Adhara, Rupokteke, Devadatmanaji, that Purvapakshi said? So Siddhantin says, so far as Maryada, that is limit, and so on, they are existing only in the Supreme Lord. It could be conceived for what? For Upastyartham. It is only for Upasana. Because the absolute reality, Parameshwara, without some adjectival limitations in the sense of what you call some Nama, Rupa, and also number of the qualities, he cannot be done Upasana. When you do Upasana, when the Upasya is the Supreme Lord, is Sabhisesha, Saguna, Sakara, Ishvara, Parameshwara. Then only that Supreme Lord becomes Upasya. When the same Supreme Lord is seen from an Advaitic perspective, as you evolve further, then he is conceived to be Jnaya, because he transcends, he goes beyond all these Upasya, all these characteristics. Remember, Brahman is, to say that Brahman is devoid of Guna, Vishesha, etc. is technically wrong. Brahman is beyond, that's a correct word. So this is a very important point to remember. To say that Brahman is Nirguna, Brahman has nothing, he has no Guna, it's wrong. It is the Guna Atita. So Nirgunatvam is always mentioned to deny the possibility of Brahman being limited by Guna. When Brahman is said to be a Rupa, or beyond Rupa, it is only in the sense it is not bound by Rupa. But Nama, Rupa, qualities, all these are limiting factors. The absolute reality is really capable of manifesting as the non-absolute Upasya Vastu. To give an example, there is no better example for the devotees of Ramakrishna mission. You know, Sri Ramakrishna was going through this Advaita sadhana. So in the beginning, the Divine Mother was standing as an obstacle. He could not transcend the Saguna Sakara form. Then Totapuri went about and he took a piece of crystal and pressed on his forehead and asked him to meditate. Then the same Divine Mother stood aside and took him to her own transcendental Nirvishesha dimension. So the same Nirvishesha, Nirakara, Nirguna, Brahman, when it manifests as Saguna Sagara Savishesha for the sake of Upasakas, without Saguna Sagara Savisheshatva, you cannot do any Upasana. It's a very important point. So you should always remember, there is no Hinopama. Kapyasam is the interpretation given by Shankaracharya is only factual. And if you follow Panini's grammar, if you follow even pre-Panini and Sagadayana's grammar, if you follow any grammatical system, that's a normal interpretation. It is found in the Suti. Shankaracharya did not write this mantra, Kapyasam, etc. It is found in the Samaveda, in the Upanishad. So he gave a meaning. But then he did not compare it with the Lord's eyes. He compared it only to the brilliant redness of a red lotus flower. So Kapyasam is not compared to the Lord's eyes. It is only compared to the lotus. Then the red lotus is compared to the Lord's eyes. So that should be kept in mind. Okay. So I mentioned to you already that the technique, according to many of the scholars, it is only Drishtanta Sankati, that is a connectedness in terms of illustration or comparison or illustration. There are scholars who will tell you it is not Drishtanta Sankati, it is Prasanga Sankati. Prasanga means incidental. That's a subject that you need not take very seriously about unless. Now we will come to the text proper. Please keep in mind, you can go to the text. Do you have any doubt about what I said just now? You're welcome to ask. Any doubt? Can you hear? Okay.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. Do you have anything to ask? Okay.
No, Maharaj.
Okay. Now we come to subject. Idam amanayate. Now this is the text proper. Now you should listen very carefully. This is a technical text. Idam amanayate. Idam here means now we are beginning Upasana. Athaya eshundiraditye hiranmaya purusho drishyate hiranyasmasruhu hiranyakesha aprakhanat sarva eva suvarnaha. Before that I already mentioned earlier. Sarvatmya, sarva duridadahitya chaisra already mentioned. Now the text proper. So this Upanishad state that in this Aditya, in the sun, there is this Hiranmaya Purushaha, golden color, then golden beard, golden hair, all completely gold right up to the end of the nail, everything is golden. Tasya yatha kapyasam pundarikamiva akshini tasya udinidi nama sa esha sarvebhya papnabhya udida udedi havai sarvebhya papnabhyo yaevam veda. Already finished. Idi adhidaivatam. This is the transcendental, the universal. At the transcendental level. See. So Om here, idam amanayade should be understood as a reference to the Chandogya mantra Omidi edadaksharam udgitam upasida. That's the beginning in the Shashta Khanda. Omidi edadaksharam udgitam upasida. So that is the beginning of this particular section. I remember it is Samaveda Upasana. So after this, ityadi, and then atha adhyatmam athaya yeshondira drakshini purusho drishyate. Atha adhyatmam. So iti adhidevatam. At the transcendent level, this divine person is seen, his golden color, golden beard, golden hair, is seen in Aditya, in sun, at the Adidevata level, at the divine level, at the transcendental level, the universal level, so to speak. At the Adhyatmam, at the physical, finite level. Adaya Eshondar Akshini Purusho Drishyade. So Akshi Purusha, Aditya Purusha. Aditya Purusha is the transcendental, Adhidevadam, and Akshi Purusha is Adhyatma, Ityadi. Tatra Samseha. Kim Vidya Karmadi Se Vashad. Vidya Karma Adisaya Vashad. So Adisaya means extreme, huge abundance of Vidya and Karma. As a result of a lot of rituals, yajnas, yagas, and satkarmas, a person can get exalted. Vidya, karma, adisaya vashat. Praptorkashaha. A person may reach a very high level, an exalted level. He may become a yogi. And he may have a lot of powers. He may have divine form. And he is seen in Aditya, the transcendental level, Adhidevada level, and is seen in the I at the physical level, at the individual level, so to speak. Now, what does it mean? It is a kind of dhyanam. Remember, it is a kind of upasana, a kind of meditation, devata upasana, vaidika upasana. That should be kept in mind. So, long before these temples emerged, puja emerged, most of these spiritual practices in ancient India during the early Vedic age were upasanas, which are called devata upasana. We call vaidika upasana, not pauranika or aidihasika, not based on Puranas or Itihasas, but based on Vedic literature. So Vaidika Upasana. So those who cannot fully understand Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha is the conclusion of the previous Adhikarana, but Brahman is Jnaya Vastu. Those who cannot understand, those who are not fully accomplished, not fit to reach that level of spiritual progress, for them something is to be prescribed for Upasana. Remember at the beginning, the earlier section we read, Dhruva Brahma Upasana. Brahma can be understood as Jnaya Vastu and Upasya Vastu. Jnaya Vastu means if you are fully spiritually fit to understand the Tattvamasi Mahavakya, etc., then one Sravana is enough. That is called Jnaya. That is actually one of the views mentioned according to Vivarana Prasthana, Sravanaparokshvada. So, that's only Prasankhyanavada, the Bhamadi school. That we will discuss later. So, those who cannot understand the Jnaya Vastu, they should understand the Upasya Vastu. At the Upasana level, different Upasanas are mentioned. And this is one of the Upasanas called Sambad Dhyanam. It is called. There are many kinds of Dhyana mentioned here. We already discussed. I mentioned in the fourth Sutra, Tattwamayanandaji, there is an elaborate discussion on Sambad Dhyanam, Adhyas Dhyanam, etc. When you deliberately superimpose one thing on another, for example, you superimpose Brahman through Sankalpa on Jiva, and if you do sincerely, the result is Amrutatvam, because Brahman is Amruta, so Amruta Swarupa. So if a person who should reach a very high level of sadhana, chadushta sampatti, sravana, marana, nididhyasana, then he can do dhyanam, superimposing Brahmatvam on himself, then he will be able to transcend his own body, mind, complex identity, and he can attain Amrutatvam. This is called Sambad Dhyanam. So such a Dhyanam is being discussed here. For that, we should know Vedartha Jnanam is necessary, Swadhyaya is necessary. Without that, we may not be able to understand this. This is ancient Upasana Viti. So the question is whether that golden person, the Hiranmaya Purusha, is some kind of an exalted person who has done a lot of karmas, pranajnas and yagas, and then who have reached a very high level, maybe living Brahmaloka or some other divine loka, or it is Parameshwara himself. Kim va nityasiddha Parameshwara iti. So one is this. Ityadi. Tatra samseka kim vidya karma disevashad praptokarshaka. You reach through, you reach a very high level of punya, spiritual qualities by practicing vidya karma disaya. Vidya karma disevashad praptokarshaka. Kachi samsari. But he is samsari, he has to come back. Kshine punya matti logam vishanti. Even the highest yogi also has to come back to this world one day. That is called samsari. When the punya is exhausted, he has to come back. Surya Mandali, Chakshushicha, Upasityena Suyidi, Kim va Nityasiddhaka. Whether it is an exalted person, a samsari, a devada visheshaka, a divine entity who is existing in Aditya Purusha, and then you are meditating that reality as existing in you, in your own eyes, and through this dhyanam you can reach the highest level of spiritual progress already mentioned here. So the question is whether that Aditya Purusha is an exalted samsari jiva, or Devadatma, or is a Parameshwara. Kim tavat praptam. So what is the answer? Purvapakshin says samsari iti. So it is samsari. That is Purvapakshin's view. Remember, these are two prayogas. Technically speaking, when in Udgada chants certain mantras, Ganam, Samaganam, he performs this dhyana vidhi, the upasana vidhi. So it is the same, it is only one karma, only two types of prayoga of the same karma. Maybe done in the morning, certain Vedic rituals are to be performed in the morning and also should be repeated in the evening. There are not two karmas, there are only two angas of the same karma. Either you meditate on the Aditya Purusha, Hiranmaya Purusha, then you meditate that Aditya Purusha is existing in your own eyes. That means you are connecting the micro with the macro. You are connecting the individual with the transcendental. You are connecting your own small entity with something that is transcendental. The result is you get a phalam. That phalam will give you some higher result. Upasana vidhi. You may get some other powers, other benefits, etc. This is called second Sambhat Upasana. So that's one thing. Samsari iti kuta. So this is Purvapakshin. Samsari iti. Kutaha Rupavattu Sravanat. Why Rupavattum? That Hiranmaya Purusha has got a definite form. First of all, Hiranyas Masruhu, Hiranyakeshaka, Aprakhana Sarva Eva Suvarnaka. So it's all very clear, you can read anything. A long beard, long hair, and then absolutely golden color, right up to the end of the nail, etc. So Rupavattu Sravana, the Sudhi, the Vedas mention this Rupavattum of this Aditya Mandala Purusha and Chakshushi Purusha. But the form is there. Now remember, Aditya Purushe tavat Hiranyas Masruhu ityadi Rupa Mudakrutam. Akshi Purushebi Tateva Adideshena. Adidesha means Aropa, Aropya, means superimposing, it's called Adidesha. So you do that is Sampadhyanam. You do Aropa, you are superimposing the same transcendental Aditya Purusha in your own eyes. And so Aditya Purusha existing at the transcendental level, it also exists at the individual level. In both cases, there is Rupavattum. It has got definite form. Tasya yadasya tadeva rupam yad amushya rupam iti. The same form is superimposed on your own akshi. Naja parameshwarasya rupavattum yuktam ashabdam asparsham arupam avyayam iti sutehi kathopanishad. So Parameshwara cannot have a form. You cannot visualize Ishvara as a long beard, long hair, all golden color, and is absolutely gold right up to the end of his nail. At least that's not the way you are limiting Parameshwara to a form. Any kind of Rupavattam is a limitation. Parameshwara may be able to take any form. Saguna, Sakara, Savishesha, Ishvara can take any form. Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, etc. You find all the incarnations. Parashurama, etc. So all these are different incarnations. Suppose you say this Parameshwara has got definite form, etc. Then he has only Narasimha form. The same Parameshwara Vishnu takes Narasimha form, Matsya form, Kurma form, and so on. So it's not limited by a definite Rupavattu. That's the idea behind. Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Avyayam, etc. It is Sutehi. The second yukti that Purvapakshi mentioned is Adhara Sravanacha. Ya Yeshwandaraditye, Ya Yeshwandarakshini iti. So, he's sitting somewhere. He's seated somewhere. He's existing somewhere. There is an athara. Like the chair on which you are sitting is your athara. So that means it's a limitation. You are bringing the Lord to a very finite level. So Adhara is mentioned, Aditya, Akshini, etc. That also mentioned the Vedas. Ya Yeshwandra Aditya, Ya Yeshwandra Akshini iti. Nahi Anadharasya. So Parameshwara is Anadhara. He doesn't have a definite place where he is sitting. Parameshwara doesn't have a definite place which limits his existence or his presence. That's why Nahi Anadharasya Sumahima Pradishtidasya Sarvavyapinaka Parameshwarasya Adhara Buddhishyeda. How can Parameshwara, who is Sumahimni Pradishtida, I mean he is existing his own Mahima, his own glory, he is existing in his own glory, that is Sumahimna Pradishtidasya. And then he doesn't have a definite place where he is sitting, like Nahi Anadharasya. Adhara Rahidasya, the meaning. Sarvavyapinaka, he is all pervading. He is all pervading. Even Saguna Sagara Sabhisesha Ishvara is also existing in everyone as Antaryami. But he is not limited by that. Antaryami is sitting there. Ramanuja system, the Lord is sitting as Antaryami in everyone. Which means not limited by anything. So it is called, that says, Nahi Anadharasya Sumahimna Pradishtidasya Sarvavyapi Nahi Sarvavyapi Parameshwarasya Adhara Buddhishyeda. You cannot talk about an Adhara for the Lord who is devoid of any Adhara. Nahi Anadharasya Sumahimna Pradishtidasya Sarvavyapi, and is existing in his own glory. Sabhagava Kasmin Pradishtida iti Swe Mahimni iti. So this Chandogya Sruti is quoted here. Sabhagava Kasmin Pradishtida iti. Where is the Lord sitting there? Where is he existing? He means Swamahimni. So either in his own glory means he is all pervading. Idi akashava sarvagatascha nityaha. Idi suti bhavataka. So another Suti Vakya is akashava sarvagatascha. It is going everywhere, it is spread everywhere, it is all pervading. It is omnipresent. And also it is eternal. These are the words normally used in Srutis to explain the reality. So this is the second yukti is already mentioned. The third one is Maryada. So first one is Rupavattum. The second one is Adharavattum. So the Purvapakshin is, these are all Purvapakshin's arguments. Purvapakshin says he cannot be Parameshwara. Why? Because Aditya Akshini is location in Aditya and Akshini. Again, Rupavattum is a definite form. Hiranyasmasruhu, Hiranyakesha, etc. Aprakana Sarvaiva, Hiranmaya, etc. These are all form. So form, Rupavattum and Adharavattum. These are two arguments, yuktis, proposed by Purvapakshin. The third one is Aishwarya Maryada Sudescha. So Aishwarya Maryada. There is a limit to his powers, lordship. Saesha ye chamushmat parancho lokas tesam cheste devakamanam cha idi aditya purusasya aishwarya maryada. So already mentioned here. There is a limit, a border beyond which that Aditya Purusha cannot go. So you can find here, the Purvapakshin is arguing that this Aditya Purusha should be an exalted being because a definite form is mentioned in the Sruti and also a definite limit to his power, Maryada, Aishwarya Maryada, his glory, his powers, and also his form, location, and limited lordship, Aishwarya Maryada. All these are different statements that prove that he cannot be Parameshwara. They are also mentioned here. Sayesha ye amushmat parancho lokas tesam cheste devakamanam cha. So, again, this Lord, he is, it has got a limitation. Because beyond this, up to this point, the Lord is the Adisha, but Parameshwara cannot be limited by anything. Chamushmat parancho lokas tesam cheste devakamanam. So, he is the Lord of the desires, the accomplishments of devas, and also he is the Lord of certain lokas, certain celestial entities, certain levels of existence. Up to that extent, he is the Lord mentioned here. Saya ye cha edasma arvancho lokas tesam cheste manushya actually again mentioned here. And also he is the Lord, Adhisha, is the Lord who can accomplish, who can fulfill the desires of all human beings. And also he is the Lord of so many devas. Up to this level, he has lordship. Up to that level, he has got a lordship. That's mentioned here. So that's why, sa esha ye amushmat parancho lokas tesam cheste devakamanam sa eshe cha edasmat arvancho lokas tesam cheste barishikamanam. So he has got the power over the desires and accomplishments, fulfillment of certain desires of devas. Beyond this, And up to this, for devas and human beings, divine beings and human beings. So there is a Idi Aditya Purushasya Aishwarya Maryada. So Aditya Purusha has got certain limits to his powers, his glories. Iti Akshi Purushasya also. Similarly, Akshi Purusha, Aditya Purusha and Akshi Purusha the same. Naja Parameshwarasya Madhyavad Aishwaryam Yuktam. Madhyada can also mean limit or certain rules and regulations, certain order. Any kind of constitutional law or rules always imply some limitation up to this, not beyond that. That's the meaning of Maryada here. Idi Akshi Purushasya Nacha Parameshwarasya Maryadavad Aishwaryam Yuktam. It's not appropriate to talk about rules and regulations and limitations of the glories of the Lord. Esha Sarveshwara, Esha Bhudadipati, Esha Bhudapala, Esha Setu Vidharana, Esham Lokanam Asambhedaya, Idi Brihadarnika, Idi Avishesha Sutehi, Tasmat Na Akshyadi Purusha Vishayo Anta Parameshwara iti. It's an important statement. That is another very important. Yesha Sarveshwara. So, what is the description of Sarveshwara, Parameshwara? Given in the scriptures, the Purvabhakshin is giving a list of those characteristics. What are they? Esha Sarveshwara, Esha Bhudadipati, Esha Bhudapalaka. So, he is the Lord of everything. That is, he is the Lord of everything. The Lord of all Bhudas. All Bhuda means anything that is born, that is existing, that is living, that is Bhuda. So he is the protector, he is the savior of all Bhudas. And he is the Lord of all Bhudas, the Ishvara of all Bhudas. Not only that, he is the one who maintains an order, a kind of balance in this world. And that is very important. Actually, some of the Tikakaras have explained this in the old traditional style. What's the meaning of this order? So what is that? That is a Yesham Lokanam Asambhedaya. Means Asambheda could mean actually Asankaryaya. Asankaryaya about. What it means is, the Lord has got Sarva Niyantritvam. That is the real characteristic of a Parameshwara. And Purvabhakshin says, this Hiranmaya Purusha doesn't have Sarva Niyantritvam. He is limited in terms of certain rules and regulations, a limit to his own powers, and the place where he is sitting, Adhara, where he is located, limitation of his lordship, and also he has certain forms. For all these reasons, the Hiranya Purusha cannot be Parameshwara. He should be some kind of an exalted yogi, a samsari. Samsari doesn't mean normal conventional language samsari. You call a person, you call him, you scold him, you are a samsari. That's it. Samsari actually means somebody who may be a great yogi, did a lot of punya karmas. He may have reached Brahmaloka, he may be reached Andhra, but again he has to come back again. Shrine Punya Matti Lokam Vishandi. Such a person is called samsari. He may be born, maybe for a very long time, made a lot of punya karmas. He may go to some divine world, Chandraloka, Adityaloka, Brahmaloka, wherever it is. He may live for millions of years. Still at some point he has to come back again. Shrine Punya Matti Lokam Vishandi. He is bound by his karmas, because punya karma is also bondage. And Parameshwara is not even bound by punya karma. Why? Because he has transcended, gone beyond not only papa but also gone beyond punya. He is not bound by the punya or papa. That's a major distinction. One important point is that is Govindananda in Bhashyaratna Prabha. Bhudadipatihi Yamaha Bhudapalaha Indradischa Esha Eva. So example is given, Even Yama, Indra, all these are limited. All the divine entities are limited. Devas are limited in terms of their powers, in terms of, because they have to come back again. Kimcha Jalanam Asankaraya, or Asangariyaya, you may call it. Loke Vidhargo Yada Setu Evam Esham Lokanam Varnasamadhinam Madhyada Hedutvad Seduresha Eva. So, for example, when you have bridge, when you construct the dam, you're limiting, you're directing the flow of water. Or another interpretation could be, you're saving this world from Varnasankara. That is the old interpretation. This gentleman, the great author, the Tikakara, Govindananda, is Bhashyaratna Prabha. He may have written in the 13th century or 12th century. During his time, so according to his time, he interprets Lokanam Varna Samadhinam Maryada Hedutvad. So, the Lord has the power for protecting this world, people from Varna Sankara. According to the modern interpretation, that is, this Lord is the one who creates the right balance of everything in this world by having the right mix of, the right combination of Pancha Bhudas, Pratyam Tejo Vayu Akasha. They have to combine in certain proportions. Then only the world could exist, the world can survive. So there is an invisible regulator who has the power to control, to regulate, to sustain this world. That's why the example is given to Kimcha Jalanam Asankaraya Loke Vidhargo Ida Setu. Setu is a bridge connecting one place to another place, second regulating act, and also consider a bridge which regulates or prevents the overflow rivers. It may save a place from being flooded. So all these are important examples. So there is an order in this world. Gravitation is something, the relativity is another. All these different principles in physics may be interpreted as different forms of keeping this world in a state of balance. And that is possible only for a Sarveshwara, for a Lord, for Supreme Lord, whose powers, whose location, whose form is not limited by anything. He transcends all Maryada, Adhara, Rupavatva limitations. That's the idea behind. So, Esha Sarveshwara, Esha Bhudadipatihi. He is the Adhipati, the Lord of all living entities. Esha Bhudapala. He is the one who protects, saves the whole world. Esha Setuhu. Vidharana Esham Lokanam Asambhedaya. Idi Avishesha Suteki. Tasmad na Akshadi Purushayohu Antaha Parameshwara iti. Therefore, this Parameshwara he cannot be explained to be seated either in Aditya or Akshi. The Aditya Purusha and Akshi Purusha cannot be Parameshwara. It should be something that is limited. That's the idea behind. So, Akshi Purusha and Aditya Purusha, they cannot be Parameshwara. That's the idea behind. Now, Bhashyakara begins his treatment. Just one. Evam Prapte Brumah. Now, Sutrartha Varnanam. Sutra is being explained. Sutra is Andaha Tadharmopadeshat. That explanation comes. I think we'll begin this section next class. Of course, I may not be available next week. I will give the announcement. If you have anything to ask, you are most welcome. After that, I will read an announcement regarding next week's program. Please, you have anything to ask? Most welcome.
Maharaj, for this sutra, the Siddhanti, I mean, we are yet to see, but is the idea that we should have Parameshwara Buddhi in our Upasya. That's what Siddhanti will say. I'm just asking something beforehand.
Yeah.
But is that the idea of this?
Yeah. So if you want spiritual progress, then you should look upon Aditya Purusha and Akshi Purusha as Parameshwara. If you want some glory, some powers or something, then you can even meditate upon Aditya Purusha as Samsari, big yogi. That also can get you some limited powers. That's the idea behind. People worship different deities, different demigods they worship. And these demigods have certain special powers. They can be, they'll be very happy. They'll be, even Yama was very happy when Nachiketa asked for the first two boons, Shanta Sankalpa Sumana Edasya Vedamanyu Gautamama Abhivutyu Tutprasistama Abhivade Prasida Editrayanam Prathamam Varanprani. No problem. Yama was happy. Again, Sattu Magnim Sorgi Madheshu Mutyu Sorgaloga Amrutam Bhajande Editrayanam Dutiyam Varanprani. Vrineva Rena. It's all mentioned here. So that is Sattu Magnim Sorgi Madheshu Mutyu Prabruhitam Sadadanaya Mahyam Sorgaloga Amrutam Bhajande something like that. That is the second boon. Yama was very happy to grant the first two boons. Second boon, so third boon, Yama was very reluctant. Why? Because you ask Yama, of course, in this we cannot completely, it's not identical, but the point is, you can ask these demigods, some special divine entities who are supposed to be custodians of certain powers, you get some powers all of a sudden. But that frequently becomes stumbling blocks, obstacles to one's spiritual progress, because you get stuck, you get stranded by that. That itself can even bring you down. But if you meditate on Aditya Purusha as Parameshwara, then that will help you to eventually reach spiritual progress. Okay, for you, Sri Ramakrishna is enough. You need not go. These are all academic studies. But remember, these great books, they reflect the evolution of Hindu spirituality, different levels of Hindu spirituality. This book, if you just read books written on Brahma Sutra and glory of this interpretation, what level of intellect, insight. And remember, the same Shankaracharya was again writing Gadistum Tamega Bhavani. People don't have the brain to understand, unfortunately. Actually, the greatest Bhakta and greatest Advaita are the same. That's the idea behind, okay? Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Okay.